What if the echo of your own voice is the only thing standing between you and the silence that could save your life, and the echo is not a comfort, it is a cage made of the words you have been repeating to yourself since childhood. Words like, I am not enough, I am too much, I am different, I am broken. And you have been bouncing those words off the walls of your mind so relentlessly that they have become indistinguishable from the truth. But the truth is not in the echo. The truth is in the silence that follows. The silence that you've been running from with the speed of a terrified animal. The silence that holds the key to everything you have ever wanted, because in the silence, the noise of your conditioning dissolves. And you can hear the whisper of your authentic self. The self that has been waiting patiently, eternally for you to stop shouting long enough to listen. And today, we are going to turn off the microphone. We are going to step away from the amplifier. We are going to let the echo fade into the vast emptiness of the cosmos. And we are going to sit in that emptiness. We are going to breathe it in. We are going to let it fill us. And we are going to discover that the silence is not a void. It is a womb of infinite possibility. A womb that is ready to birth the person you were always meant to become. But the birth is painful because it requires you to die to the person you have been performing. The person who has been performing for so long that they have forgotten they are an actor. And the performance is the only thing keeping them alive. But the performance is also the thing that is killing them slowly, quietly, and with exquisite cruelty. The first story is a story of a man who lived in a city of mirrors, a city where every surface reflected his image, and he could not escape his own reflection. It was in the windows, the puddles, the polished brass, and he was obsessed with his reflection. He spent hours adjusting his posture, his expression, his clothing, trying to perfect the image, trying to make it worthy of admiration. And he was admired. He was the most admired man in the city. But he was also the loneliest because he had never looked behind the reflection. He had never asked who was doing the looking. And one day, the mirrors began to crack, one by one. They fissured and shattered, and the man was terrified he was losing his identity. He was losing his image, and he ran through the city, looking for a mirror that was intact, but they were all broken. And he collapsed in a square, weeping, and a child approached him. A child who had no reflection, because the child was a ghost who had been living in the city for centuries, unnoticed, unadmired. And the child said, "Why are you weeping?" And the man said, "I have no reflection. I am nothing." And the child said, "You are not nothing. You are the one who was looking. The reflection was never you. It was always just a surface, a distraction. You are the looker. The looker is eternal. The looker is the one who sees, and the looker does not need a mirror to exist. The looker exists whether there is a reflection or not. The looker is the only truth." And the man looked at the child, and he saw that the child had no face. The child was a presence without a form. And he realized that the child was his own soul, the soul he had been ignoring in favor of the surface. And he wept again. But this time it was not from grief. It was from relief. And the twist is that the mirrors did not repair themselves. The man did not try to fix them. He left the city of mirrors and went to a forest where there were no reflections. And he lived among the trees, and he learned to see himself in the way the wind moved the leaves, in the way the river carved the stone, in the way the stars held their silence. And he became a sage, not because he was wise, but because he had stopped looking for himself in the eyes of others. The second story is a story of a musician who played a violin that had no strings, and the musician was a genius. He could hear the music in his head. He could feel it in his bones. But he could not play it because the violin was silent, and he was mocked. He was ridiculed. He was called a charlatan. But he did not stop. He kept playing the silent violin. He kept practicing the fingering, the bowing, the posture, and one day a woman came to him, a woman who was deaf, and she said, "I can hear your music. I can feel it in the vibrations of the air. It is the most beautiful music I have ever heard." And the musician was shocked, he said, "But the violin has no strings. It is silent. And the woman said, "The music is not in the strings. It is in you, and the strings are just a tool that you do not need because you are the instrument, you are the music, you are the song. And the silence you have been carrying is the most resonant silence in the world." And the musician wept because he had been searching for the sound outside himself, and the sound had always been inside him. And the twist is that he did not find strings for the violin. He stopped playing altogether. He became a conductor, not of an orchestra, but of a silence that he taught others to hear. And he became the most famous musician in the world, not because he played, but because he listened. And he said, "The greatest music is the music that is never played, the music that lives in the space between the notes, the music that is the breath before the note, the music that is the silence after the note, that is the eternal music. And you are all musicians of that silence. You just have to stop making noise long enough to hear it." The third story is a story of a painter who painted only in black because he was afraid of color, afraid of the chaos, the unpredictability, the vulnerability of color, and he was a master of black. He could paint the deepest shadows, the sharpest silhouettes, the most profound voids, and he was respected. He was revered, but he was also empty because black was the color of absence, and he was painting his own absence. And one day a child came to his studio, and the child was covered in paint, red, yellow, blue, green, every color imaginable. And the painter was horrified. He said, "You are a mess. You are chaos. You are everything I fear." And the child said, "I am not chaos. I am life. And you are painting death. You are painting the grave. You are painting the grave. You are painting the end. But life is not the end. Life is the middle. Life is the color. Life is the mess. Come with me. Come into the color. Come into the mess. Come into the life." And the painter hesitated. He was terrified, but he was also curious. And he followed the child into a garden of impossible flowers that were every shade of the rainbow. And the painter was overwhelmed. He was dizzy. He was nauseous, and then he was free. He picked up a brush that was not black, and he painted a flower, a yellow flower, a clumsy flower, an imperfect flower, and he wept, not because it was beautiful, but because it was his. It was his first color, his first risk, his first life. And the twist is that the painter did not abandon black. He incorporated it. He learned that black was not the absence of color. It was the presence of all color, and his paintings became vibrant, complex, and full of a depth that no one had ever seen. And he said, "The color is not the enemy. The black is not the friend. They are both part of the same dance, and the dance is the painting, and the painting is the life. And the life is the mess, and the mess is the masterpiece." The fourth story is a story of a baker who baked the same loaf of bread every day for 40 years, the same recipe, the same ingredients, the same temperature, the same time, and the bread was perfect. It was consistent, it was predictable, and the baker was proud of his perfection. But he was also bored. He was so bored that he began to hate the bread. He began to hate the smell, the texture, the taste. And one day he decided to change the recipe just a little. He added a pinch of salt, and the bread was different. It was not perfect, it was not consistent, it was not predictable, and the customers were confused. They said, "This is not your bread, this is not the bread we love." And the baker was tempted to go back, to return to the safety of the familiar. But he did not. He added a pinch more, and more and more. And he experimented with herbs, with spices, with different flours. And he made mistakes. He made terrible bread that was inedible, but he also made discoveries. He made bread that was transcendent. And he became famous not for his perfection, but for his creativity. And the twist is that the baker did not stay in the bakery. He traveled the world learning from other bakers, other traditions, other ways of making bread. And he wrote a book about the art of baking, and he said, "The perfect loaf is a lie. The perfect loaf is the enemy of the good. The good loaf is the one that is alive." the one that changes, the one that surprises, the one that is baked with love and risk and curiosity. The perfect loaf is the loaf you have never made, the loaf you are afraid to make, the loaf that is waiting for you to be brave enough to try. The fifth story is a story of a weaver who wove a tapestry of her life, a tapestry that showed every moment, every joy, every sorrow, every triumph, every failure, and she wove it with extraordinary skill. It was the most detailed tapestry in the world, and she hung it on the wall of her cottage, and she looked at it every day, and she was proud of it, but she was also haunted by it. Because the tapestry was a prison, it was a record of everything that had been, and it left no room for what could be. And one day, a moth flew into the cottage, a moth that was drawn to the light of a candle, and the moth landed on the tapestry, and it began to eat the threads, and the weaver screamed. She tried to shoo it away, she tried to kill it, but the moth was persistent, and it ate a hole in the tapestry, a hole that grew and grew, and the weaver wept. She wept for her lost work. But then she looked at the hole, and through the hole, she saw the garden outside her cottage, a garden she had not noticed in years because she was too busy looking at the tapestry, and she realized that the hole was not a loss. It was a window to the present, a window to the reality that was happening right now. And the twist is that she did not repair the tapestry, she took it down. She burned it in the fireplace, and she walked into the garden. She touched the flowers, she smelled the soil, she listened to the birds, and she said the tapestry was a story, but the garden is the storyteller, and the storyteller is not the story. The storyteller is the one who is alive, the one who is changing, the one who is growing, and the story is never finished. The story is always being written, and the pen is in my hand, not in the past. The sixth story is a story of a fisherman who fished in the same spot every day, and he caught the same fish, a fish that was ordinary, edible, and unremarkable, and he was content. He was not rich, but he was not hungry, and he had a routine, a rhythm, a predictability that he found comforting. And one day, a storm blew his boat off course, and he was stranded on a distant shore, a shore where the water was clear and the fish were strange fish. He had never seen fish of every color, every shape, every size, and he was afraid. He wanted to go back to his spot, back to his fish, back to his comfort, but he could not. The storm had changed everything, and he was forced to adapt, to learn, to try new bait, new techniques. And he discovered a fish that was not ordinary, not edible, not unremarkable. He was a fish of luminous beauty, a fish that glowed in the dark, a fish that was worth more than 1,000 of his ordinary fish. And he caught it not because he was skilled, but because he was open. And the twist is that he did not return to his old spot. He stayed on the new shore, and he became a legend among fishermen, not because he caught the fish, but because he had the courage to stay, to explore, to let go of the familiar. And he said, the fish was always there. The fish was always waiting, but I was too busy fishing in the same spot to see it. The storm was not a disaster. It was a gift. The storm was the thing that forced me to see the luminous fish. The storm was the thing that forced me to see the luminous light, and the luminous light is the one that is unknown. The one that is unknown, the one that is waiting for you to be brave enough to set sail. The seventh story is a story of a queen who was so wealthy that she built a palace of ice, a palace that shimmered and sparkled, a palace that was the envy of the world, and she was proud of her palace. She spent her days admiring it, polishing it, protecting it, and she was happy. She was the happiest queen in the world until the sun began to melt the ice, and the palace started to drip, to crack, to collapse, and the queen was terrified. She tried to stop the sun. She tried to shade the palace. She tried to rebuild the ice, but it was futile. The sun was relentless, and the palace melted into a puddle of water that reflected the sky, and the queen wept. She wept for her lost palace. She wept for her lost pride. But then she looked at the puddle, and she saw the clouds, the birds, the infinite blue of the sky. and she realized that the puddle was more beautiful than the palace because the puddle was not a construction. It was a reflection of the real. And the twist is that she did not rebuild the palace, she built a garden of flowers that grew in the soil that had been nourished by the melted ice, and she said, the ice was a lie of permanence, a lie of control. The water is the truth, the water is the flow, the water is the life, and the life is not in the palace, the life is in the garden, the life is in the growth, the life is in the acceptance that everything melts, everything changes, everything is a reflection of something greater. The eighth story is a story of a watchmaker who was obsessed with stopping time. He built a device, a machine that he believed could freeze the hands of the clock, freeze the sun in the sky, freeze the world in a single perfect moment, and he worked on this machine for decades. He sacrificed his health, his relationships, his fortune, and finally he succeeded. He built the machine and he activated it, and time stopped. The birds froze in mid-flight, the waves froze in mid-crash, the people froze in mid-stride, and the watchmaker was ecstatic. He had achieved the impossible, but then he realized that he was also frozen. He could not move. He could not think, he could not feel, because thought requires time. Feeling requires time, movement requires time, and he had stopped time. But he had also stopped himself, and he was trapped in a prison of his own making, a prison of perfect stillness, and he screamed, but there was no sound because sound requires time, and he wept, but there were no tears because tears require time, and he was alone in a world that was not a world, it was a painting of the world, and he realized that the painting was beautiful, but it was also dead, and the twist is that he did not destroy the machine. He could not because he was frozen, he was trapped for eternity. But the world outside the frozen bubble continued, and the people who were not frozen built a monument to the watchmaker. A monument that said, he who sought to stop time was stopped by time, he who sought to master the moment was mastered by the moment. The moment is not a possession, the moment is a river, and the river must flow, or it becomes a swamp. The ninth story is a story of a ship that sailed on a sea that had no shore, a sea that was endless circular, and the sailors on the ship were cursed. They were doomed to sail forever, never reaching a destination, never finding a harbor, and they were desperate. They were mad, they were lost, and one day a sailor looked over the side of the ship, and he saw a reflection, not of the ship, but of a shore that was inverted, a shore that was underwater, and he realized that the shore was not above, it was below. It was the mirror image of the world they were seeking. And he dove into the sea, and he swam down, and he found the shore, and it was real, it was solid, and he walked on it, and he saw that the inverted world was not a reflection. It was the original, the world above was the reflection, and he had been sailing on a mirror for his entire life. And the twist is that he did not tell the others, because he knew they would not believe him, and he stayed on the inverted shore, and he lived a simple life, a life of peace, a life of stillness. And he said, the search is the mirror. The destination is the one who stops searching. The shore is not out there. The shore is in here, and the in here is the only harbor that matters. The 10th story is a story of a storyteller who told the same story every night. A story of a hero who saved the world. A story that was epic, grand, and beloved, and the storyteller was famous. He was the greatest storyteller in the land, and he was happy, he was content, but he was also tired. He was tired of the same story, tired of the same hero, tired of the same ending. And one night, he told a different story, a story of a villain who was not evil, but misunderstood. A story of a villain who was trying to save the world in his own way. A story that was complicated, messy, and uncertain, and the audience was shocked. They were angry. They said, that is not the story, that is not the hero, that is not the ending we want. And the storyteller was afraid. He was tempted to go back to tell the familiar story, but he would not. He said, this is the story I have to tell. This is the story that is true. The hero is not the one who is always strong. The hero is the one who is willing to be wrong. The hero is the one who is willing to change. The hero is the one who is willing to see the villain in himself. And that is the story I am telling you. And if you do not like it, you can leave. But I will not stop telling the truth. And the audience did leave. They left in droves, but a few stayed, a few who were hungry for a different story. A few who are tired of the simple, the heroic, the predictable. And the storyteller told his story to those few, and they were transformed not because the story was better, but because it was real. And the twist is that the storyteller became a legend, not for the story he had told, but for the courage to tell a different one. And he said, "The greatest story is the one that is not told. The greatest story is the one that is lived. The greatest story is the one that is messy, uncertain, and true. And you are the storyteller, and you are the story, and the story is never finished. The story is always changing, and the only way to tell it is to live it with courage, with vulnerability, with the willingness to be wrong, and the willingness to change. And that is the story I am telling you now. And the story is you, and the story is me, and the story is us, and the story is now."